Hello, everyone. On this podcast episode, I'm going to talk about the IQ test again and why you should truly avoid the test. I know that, some people may have, not everyone creating the IQ test have a negative mindset when creating it. Not everyone, tries to scam you, and not everyone, in the whole IQ organization may be trying to scam us. Some people may have, a positive view of the IQ test. They don't have ulterior motives. But just because someone does not have an ulterior motive does not mean what they're doing can't be used to harm others falsely. The IQ test has its place. If the IQ test was created as just a joke, those online tests you take, right? Those online personality tests where they're not accurate, but you just take them as just something to do as a fun exercise. If the IQ tests were created in that sense, where we know it's not truly accurate and nobody really cares, right? Then I'll actually like the IQ test. But when the IQ test is being treated as a fact, is when that's when I draw the line. When people start seeing the IQ test as infallible, is when there's something wrong going on. There's something detrimental with the IQ test. The IQ test can be infallible because the people who created this IQ test aren't infallible. They're humans just like you and me. They make mistakes just like you and me. They have errors in their thinking just like you and me. So, are you really sure this IQ test is accurate? When these humans make mistakes just like you and me? That's what you need to be careful of. Humans make mistakes. It's so easy to start thinking the wrong things just from one mistake alone. The moment you start believing the earth is flat, you start seeing the whole world as a flat world. And that mindset would change the way you behave. Likewise, if you see the earth as round, it also changes your mindset and how you see the world. And I think there's a mistake when it comes to the IQ test. The IQ test can be accurate because we don't have a neutral view of intelligence. We don't truly know what intelligence is. No one truly knows what intelligence is. We have our view of intelligence is biased towards the human race. It is biased towards the way humans behave. It is biased towards the way humans think. And this may not be accurate. Just because someone is human-like or something is human-like does not mean it's more intelligent than something that's not human-like. For example, in fantasy stories, there's a race called elves, right? Elves do not behave like humans. Elves do not they prefer living in general cases. Elves prefer living in forests, like villagers. They have the ability to create houses, right? They have the ability to create technology. They have the ability to build ships, spaceships. They have the ability to create all these technological advances. But they do not. In most fantasy stories, elves prefer to live in nature, even though they're as smart as a human. Some elves, in some stories, elves are even smarter than humans. Yet, elves, no matter how smart they are, no matter how intelligent they are, they still prefer to live in huts. They still prefer to use basic tools. They still prefer to live in the most simplistic way possible, just like common villagers in villages. So does that mean elves are not as smart as humans? If elves prefer to live as common villagers without any tools, does it make them less intelligent than human beings? Even though they are technically just as smart as a human being? No. And that's what you need to understand. Just because something is more human-like does not mean it's more intelligent. Just because something behaves like a human being does not mean it's more intelligent. There are animals in this world that will never behave like humans because they aren't humans. A fish will never behave like a human being. Does that mean a fish is not as intelligent as a human? Just like elves who prefer to live as villagers, in forests, do fishes who prefer to live as a fish less intelligent than a human? Do you need to be a technologically advanced society to be considered intelligent, even though you chose not to? You use your own intelligence to decide, I don't want ships. I don't want to build ships. I don't want to build houses. I don't want to build weapons. I don't want to build these things. Do you really think these things that we have as a human, as a human being, as a human race as a whole, these technologies that we have make us more intelligent than a fish? A fish does not have the mouth of a human being, so it'll never communicate like a human. A fish does not have the arms of a human being, so a fish will never move its arms like a human. A fish does not have the legs of a human, so a fish will never walk like a human. A fish does not have the brain of a human, so a fish will never think like a human being. A fish will never desire the things that humans desire. A fish will never behave the way humans behave. So just because a fish does not behave like a human being, doesn't mean a fish is not intelligent. Are humans the universal, basis of intelligence? Are you sure behaving more like a human means you're more intelligent? Are you really sure of that? Do we have enough, information to actually firmly accept that behaving like a human being proves you're more intelligent? So now let's talk about being a human being. Within the human race, who's more intelligent? If you're someone who decides to become a police officer, would you agree if someone tells you you're less intelligent than an engineer? You used your intelligence, when you were younger to become a police officer. But since this world worships those who are engineers, now people are telling you you're not as smart as an engineer. Does your occupation determine how intelligent you are? Engineers create all these, cool gadgets. Does that mean they're more intelligent than you because you don't create any of these gadgets, any of these technologies? Okay, what about a lawyer? Do you think a lawyer is less intelligent than an engineer just because it's a lawyer? You create these complicated laws that help society, advance, that helps the human race as a whole. But yet you're not considered as intelligent as an engineer. Isn't it unfair for people to say you're less intelligent than an engineer because they think engineers are more intelligent than you are? They've arbitrarily decided that people who behave like engineers are more intelligent than you. So all the things you've done will be downplayed and insulted. All the laws you spent your entire life creating, working on, perfecting, will be seen as worthless because you're not an engineer. Is it fair? Do you think it's fair to think that someone is more intelligent just because they create tools. They behave like a human being. Do you think someone is more intelligent because they behave like an engineer? And if they don't behave like an engineer, they're not intelligent. If they like creating music, they're not as intelligent as an engineer. If they like helping others, they became nurses and started, and prefer helping others. They're automatically assumed to be less intelligent than an engineer. If they like building roads, they're not as intelligent as an engineer. If they like solving crimes, they became detectives, they became, doctors. They even became the president of the United States. But since they're not engineers, they're not as smart. Would you agree if someone tells you you're not as smart as an engineer, even though you're the president, you're the leader of your country, yet people still see you as dumber than an engineer? Would you agree that you're automatically dumber than an engineer just because you don't behave like one? Would you agree if you're just a high school teacher or any teacher in general that you're dumber than an engineer, even though the things you teach are far more complicated than what an engineer does on a daily basis? Would you agree that just because you're a teacher, you're automatically dumber than an engineer? Then why do you think we should agree that humans are smarter than animals? Humans and animals, in general, we're all animals, right? But every animal in this world has its own desires. They have their own brain. They have their own different thinking processes. Their emotions are different. The things they see are also different. The eyes see in different colors. Their brain thinks differently. Their bodies behave differently. So just because they behave differently, does that mean they're less intelligent than we are? What if they don't want to be Einstein? What if they don't want to think like Einstein? They use their highly advanced brains and decided behaving like a human doesn't make sense to us. I am a fish. Why should I behave like a human being? I am a cow. Why should I behave like a human being? I am a bird. Why should I behave like a human being? I am a bacteria. Why should I behave like a human being? We don't really know what intelligence truly means. And that's the problem. We don't truly understand what intelligence truly means. For the most part, most people think the more intelligent you are, the more human-like you are. That may not be the case. Just because you behave like a human being does not mean you're more intelligent. Just because you behave like an engineer does not mean you're more intelligent than a musician. Just because you're an engineer does not mean you're more intelligent than a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, or the leader of your country. It doesn't mean anything. It just means you're an engineer. We don't truly understand what intelligence is. We think creatures that have human-like, behaviors are more intelligent. But we also have to realize that they are humans to begin with. So why should they behave like a human being? Why should they solve puzzles like a human? Why should they think like a human? Why should they process things like a human? Why should they behave like a human? They shouldn't. So are they less intelligent just because they don't behave like a human being? Because they don't build houses? Because they don't have, cell phones and cars? They aren't humans to begin with. They don't have these desires. These are human desires. The desire to create technology is a human desire, a human quality, a human trait. The desire to build houses is human trait only. Maybe some primates may have that desire, but not every animal in this world has that desire. It doesn't mean they're less intelligent than we are. Behaving like a human doesn't make you more intelligent. It doesn't. Intelligence should be neutral. And we don't truly understand what, we're too biased towards the human race to understand what, how to quantitate what intelligence truly means. We're biased towards the human race. We always think that, people who behave like a human being are more intelligent. Things who behave like humans are more intelligent. And they're not. They're not. We don't even know what life is. We don't even know where life begins. What is life? First, for you to actually understand what is intelligent, you must first understand things that are capable of thinking and things that are not. Is a virus capable of thinking? Is a bacteria capable of thinking? If they are they intelligent? What if they're more intelligent than we are? But since they're not a human being, they'll never behave like a human. What if a simple single cell organism is more intelligent than a human being? But because they do not behave like humans, we'll never know. That's what you need to be careful of. We don't know what intelligence truly is. Our definition of intelligence is human oriented. It's from the viewpoint of a human being. It's not from the viewpoint of any other creature. We truly don't know what intelligence is. We have a view of it. We have a good grasp of it, but we don't have a full understanding of it. We still don't have a full understanding of what a intelligent person truly is. The entire world is intelligent, but science will never call the world intelligent. That should tell you something. If science cannot accept the fact that viruses are also alive, scientists do not believe, that viruses are alive. Viruses behave like humans. Viruses aren't created in a lab. They're created just the way humans are, by atoms. The same atoms that create humans are the same atoms that create these viruses, are the same atoms that create plants, are the same atoms that create these, funguses. So if atoms are the ones that create the human body, that makes us alive, shouldn't atoms be considered alive as well? The human body is nothing more than atoms, right? The human body is nothing more than atoms. So if human beings are alive, atoms should be alive by default. Because humans and atoms are no different. There's no difference between a bunch of humans and a bunch of atoms. A bunch of atoms create the human body, just like a bunch of atoms create viruses. That's all it is. But we don't consider atoms alive. We don't consider the world alive, even though the world is filled with atoms. If atoms are alive, it means energy is alive as well. The energy within these atoms must be alive, because the energy is what creates these atoms. If humans are alive, atoms are alive. If atoms are alive, energy is alive. If energy is alive, the whole world is alive. If humans are alive and humans are the world, a part of the world, it means the world is alive. But we'll never truly consider these things as alive. We never consider the world as intelligent, even though the world is intelligent. And that's the problem. Scientists do not still understand what intelligence is. We keep creating arbitrary rules, like viruses aren't alive and humans are. Cells are alive and viruses aren't. Who gets to dictate what's alive and what's not? Are you sure viruses aren't alive? The truth is, the world is both alive and not alive at the same time. These two dualities must exist simultaneously as one. The moment you prove you're alive, you also prove you're not alive as well. The moment you prove you're alive is also the moment you prove you're not alive. The moment you prove something is not alive is also when you prove it's alive. Because these two dualities must exist simultaneously as one. The moment you prove you're alive, you prove you're made up of atoms. And atoms aren't alive. Since atoms aren't alive, you're not alive either. If atoms aren't considered alive, and you're atoms, you're not alive by default. If a rock isn't alive, a human being can't be alive either. Because the only difference, is the arrangement of atoms. The only difference between a rock and a human is the arrangement of atoms. Just because a rock is not moving does not mean it's incapable of thinking. Just because the tree doesn't move does not mean the tree is not thinking. Trees behave just like other forms of life. Some trees stay in one place for decades, hundreds of years without moving a single inch. Does that mean that they're not alive? What trait do we look for? Are we going to create arbitrary rules that dictate what's alive and what's not? We don't really know what makes something alive. We don't really know. The entire world is alive. Also, the entire world is not. The moment you start creating arbitrary rules, like what's more alive, what's not, is when you just lose the whole plot. Atoms are alive because humans are alive. Atoms created the human body. If the human body is alive, its creator must be alive as well. You can't say atoms can't be alive. Why? Because if you take atoms from the human body, there's no human body left. If you take atoms from a single cell organism, there's no single cell organism left. If you take atoms from a plant, there's no plant left. If you take atoms from a fungus, there's no fungus left. If you take atoms from a rock, there's no rock left. The thing that creates your body is also the thing that creates a rock. The thing that makes you intelligent is also the thing that puts a rock in its place. Atoms. If you're alive and you're atoms, it means this whole world is one massive living being. You're living inside the body of God, and God is alive just like you. God is also not alive just like you. These two dualities must exist simultaneously as one. God was never alive to begin with, so God can never die. You were never alive to begin with, so you can never die. Study the Bible and stop creating arbitrary rules, like who's more intelligent and who's not. The Bible warns you not to judge others. You don't truly know what an intelligent being is. The entire world is intelligent, including the rock that you think isn't. But because the rock does not behave like a human being, we assume the rock is not intelligent. The entire world is alive, including a virus. But just because the virus does not behave like a human being, just because the virus does not behave like cells, we automatically assume a virus isn't alive. You're wrong. It's a classification issue. Just because a virus does not behave like a human does not mean a virus is not intelligent. Just because the world around you does not behave like a human does not mean the world is not intelligent. And it's just a fact. Read your book, read the Bible, and learn that you live inside a massive intelligent being, and that being is God. Everything in this world is God. That means everything in this world is intelligent, because God is intelligent. If God is intelligent, if God is everything in this this world must be intelligent, and this world is intelligent. So that's it for today's podcast episode. Be careful of, the IQ test. It's way too skewed towards the human race. Its point of view is flawed. The logic is flawed with the IQ test. It's very flawed. It's geared towards someone's perspective. What they believe is intelligent may not be what intelligence truly is. And that's what you need to be careful of. What someone else considers intelligent may not be what you consider intelligence. And it may never will. I'll pray for everyone's safety and understanding. Amen. Enjoy the rest of your days and have fun.